As trade rumors continue to swirl around LeBron James, he's finally opened up about the one thing that matters most to him, his legacy. From how he wants to be remembered to what comes next. One part of what he said has the entire NBA talking. Let me break it down. There are athletes who have careers. Then there's LeBron James. He didn't just have a career, he had a reign. 23 seasons of it. And right now at 41 years old, as the whole basketball world holds its breath, waiting to find out what he does next, he's right in the middle of the most turbulent offseason of his entire life. At 41, James is already the league's oldest player and has passed Vince Carter for the most seasons played, eclipsed Robert Parrish for the most games played, and long ago put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the rear view for the most points scored in NBA history. And none of it feels like enough. When LeBron exercised his $52.6 million player option back in the 2025 offseason, it was one of the biggest headlines in the NBA, sparking a wildfire of trade speculation. His agent, Rich Paul, made it crystal clear that James would be closely monitoring the Lakers' moves going forward. That wasn't just a business move, that was a message, a shot across the bow, and every front office in the league heard it. Because here's what makes this moment different from every other LeBron offseason soap opera. ESPN's Brian Windhorst said plainly, the Lakers are essentially viewing LeBron James as an expiring contract. And that may sound like a toss-off statement, but that's not insignificant. LeBron has never been on an expiring contract, quite literally. Think about that for a second. In 23 years of professional basketball, he has always had leverage, always had a plan, always had another mountain to climb with his next deal already guaranteed. Not this time. By opting into his contract, James did something he had never done during his 23-year career. Set himself up to be a free agent without a fallback option. The safety net is gone. The master negotiator, the man who reinvented free agency as performance art in 2010, then again in 2014, and then again in 2018, is now sitting at the table with less leverage than he's ever had. And that, more than anything else, is why the whole basketball world is watching. You have to go back to where this actually started to understand why this moment is so loaded. LeBron Raymond James grew up in Akron, Ohio, not just poor, but the kind of poor where every decision his mother made was a survival decision. Gloria James was 16 years old when she gave birth to him. There was no father in the picture. They moved dozens of times. Sometimes there was no home at all. And then her son turned out to be, by every measurable standard, the best basketball player ever born. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated while still in high school. He was compared to Michael Jordan before he'd played a single professional game. The pressure wasn't just extraordinary, it was unprecedented. And yet he met every single one of those expectations. For 2 decades, James has been the singular most compelling figure in the NBA. Not always the best, though he was, or the most popular, though he has been, but absolutely the most dominant when it comes to harnessing awe and attention, for better or for worse. He didn't just play basketball, he played a game within the game. The PR game, the business game, the legacy game. He understood that the story you control is the only story that matters. The Cavaliers, the decision, the Heat, 2 championships in Miami. Back to Cleveland, the championship that erased a city's 52-year drought. Then Los Angeles, another ring. And then Luka Doncic arrived in a trade that changed everything. Suddenly, the man who had spent his entire career as the centerpiece of every franchise he touched was no longer the centerpiece. He was the veteran, the elder statesman, the guy they needed to complement their 26-year-old franchise cornerstone. The shift wasn't just organizational, it was existential, and LeBron felt all of it. He gave signals earlier this season that this could be his last go-round, including shouting out road cities on Instagram after playing what could be his final games there, before he distanced himself from retirement talk during All-Star Weekend. One week he's saying goodbye, the next he's saying he's not going anywhere. The mixed signals aren't confusion. They're a man genuinely wrestling with something massive. Because this isn't about the next season, it's about the rest of his life. It's about how a man who has defined himself entirely through basketball figures out who he is when the basketball stops. In an exclusive interview with the California Post, James offered a comparison nobody expected. I kind of look at it like when you lose a loved one and you have a funeral, he said. The man who built an empire on seeming invincible was finally speaking the quiet part out loud. This whole thing feels like a goodbye. He just hasn't decided where the goodbye happens. The 2025-26 season was never going to be straightforward. The season didn't start smoothly. A sciatic nerve issue forced him to miss the first 14 games, the first time in his career he wasn't available at the start. Beyond the physical setback, it was a mental challenge. Here's a man who had played in every opening night of his career, a man for whom availability wasn't just professionalism, it was identity. And now his own body was telling him something he didn't want to hear. In 2025-26, James earned $52.6 million in salary, while averaging 20.9 points, 7.2 assists, and 6.1 rebounds on 51.5% shooting over 60 regular season games. Those are not the numbers of a player in decline. Those are the numbers of a legitimate all-star at 41. And yet, and this is the part that cuts deep, the Los Angeles Lakers, without an injured Luka Doncic, were swept out of the playoffs by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Swept. No rings, no parades, no fifth championship for LeBron. Just a handshake and a quiet walk to the locker room at Crypto.com Arena. That walk meant something different this time. There's an understanding happening, a clarity that had been simmering for an entire season, one that only became more apparent as the clock wound to zero, ending the Los Angeles Lakers season. LeBron James is at the end, not because he can't play, not because the numbers have cratered, but because the thing that defines his legacy, winning championships, carrying teams, being the guy, is slowly slipping beyond his reach. He topped off the season with a stellar playoff run, averaging 23.2 points, 7.3 assists, and 6.7 rebounds, in the absence of Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, who remained sidelined after sustaining injuries. He was incredible, and they still got swept. And that's the thing about LeBron's legacy that nobody has ever figured out how to talk about without starting a war. The production has always been there. The titles haven't always followed. It's a legacy of more losses than wins. Things that will matter in barbershops and GOAT discussions only if you're already trying to make an argument against James. The comparisons to Michael Jordan always end up right here. Jordan never lost the finals. LeBron has lost 6 of 10. But the context those haters leave out is enormous. He's been a man on an island, a man who couldn't will a team of players to miracle wins. Yet he's been judged for them all. When there's not a player in NBA history who would have beaten the Spurs in 2007 with that team, or the Celtics in 2010 with that team, or the Warriors in 2018 with that team. So now here he is, 41 years old, free agent, more than $1.5 billion in career earnings and business ventures. And still, the question of legacy is what keeps him up at night, because the 5th ring has been the only thing left he hasn't gotten. And every single offseason decision he makes from here on out is filtered through that one burning ambition. And the offseason that's unfolding right now is the most complicated of his entire career. LA is the first team he can talk to because he's their own free agent. The understanding is they had initial conversations with LeBron James as representative, but he has not even fully committed to returning next year in those conversations. The conversations were described as, "We're keeping in touch," not exactly ringing endorsement energy from either side. James's situation is one of the most interesting stories of the offseason because it's the first time he doesn't necessarily have leverage for a max salary. The man who invented the concept of player empowerment, who made GMs nervous in every negotiation for 2 straight decades, is now, for the first time, in a position where the league gets to say no. And that shift is everything. That's what this whole story is actually about. Because when you strip away the trade rumors and the free agency speculation and the talking heads arguing on television, what you're left with is a man coming to terms with the limits of his own greatness. A man who built a legacy that most players would trade their entire careers for, but who still sees a gap between what he's done and what he wanted to do. And in the middle of all of this uncertainty, teams are circling, offers are being floated, and one ESPN report dropped that didn't just rattle LeBron's relationship with the Lakers. It ripped the entire thing open and showed the world what was underneath. The turbulence LeBron is navigating right now isn't just about where he plays next. It's about what the next chapter says about everything that came before. And to understand why this trade conversation is so emotionally charged, you need to understand the relationship that just publicly exploded and the report that lit the match. It started with a bombshell nobody was expecting. In January 2026, ESPN's Baxter Holmes published a story detailing how infighting severed the Buss family before it relinquished ownership of the Lakers. The article revealed that Jeannie Buss, daughter of former Lakers owner Jerry, grew tired of James before spearheading the sale of the team to TWG Global CEO Mark Walter for $10 billion in June 2025. $10 billion, the most expensive sports franchise sale in history. And right in the middle of that story, buried deep enough to feel like an afterthought, but positioned deliberately enough to sting, was LeBron James. Among the many revelations of that report was the allegation that Buss had begun to turn against LeBron. Per the report, Buss had taken issue with James's outsized ego and his relationship with Clutch Sports. She further took issue with the perception of James as a savior for the organization. A savior. The word stings because it's true, and that's exactly what made it complicated. Let's lay out exactly what that report said, because it was specific. It wasn't vague industry gossip. According to the report, Buss chafed at the fact that, after pushing the Lakers to trade for Russell Westbrook, James seemed to wash his hands of that move when it didn't work out, leaving management to take the blame. Holmes also wrote that Buss didn't like LeBron being painted as the savior of a struggling franchise when he signed with the Lakers as a free agent in 2018. Holmes' ESPN story also reported that when the Lakers selected James's son, Bronny, with the 55th pick in the 2024 NBA draft, Buss privately felt James should have been grateful for the gesture and believed he was not. So it wasn't one incident. It wasn't one bad press conference. This was years of simmering frustration, a slow erosion of goodwill between an owner and a player, playing out in private while everyone publicly praised each other. And then it went further. The report went further, claiming that in the aftermath of the Westbrook failure, Buss privately mused about not offering James a contract extension, and later even considered the possibility of trading him. The LA Clippers were reportedly floated internally as a hypothetical destination, though this was before James signed a new 2-year, $104 million contract. In July 2024, that included a no-trade clause. Think about that for a second. The Lakers, the storied franchise, the house that Shaq and Kobe built, the organization LeBron moved his entire family to in 2018, was privately considering trading him to the Clippers, the team that shares their building, the team LeBron's teams had routinely embarrassed over the years. It's the kind of detail that makes you understand why LeBron reacted the way he did. Because this wasn't just about hurt feelings, it was about the entire foundation of his relationship with the organization, crumbling right before the final chapter of his career. Now, Jeanie Buss didn't take the report lying down. Los Angeles Lakers governor Jeanie Buss forcefully pushed back on the report, calling it completely unfair. In a statement released to The Athletic, Buss said the report unfairly dragged James into private ownership matters that had nothing to do with her appreciation for what he has meant to the Lakers. It's really not right, given all the great things LeBron has done for the Lakers, that he has to be pulled into my family drama, Buss said. Her defense underscored James's undeniable impact, an NBA championship, consistent contention, and global relevance, along with becoming the league's all-time leading scorer in a Lakers uniform. So on paper, Buss was defending him. On paper, this was an owner going to bat for her superstar. But read between the lines, and what you actually see is a woman distancing herself from a report that was too specific, too sourced, and too detailed to be entirely wrong. Rich Paul's response was the most revealing thing of all. Instead of defending his client directly or issuing an angry denial, Paul trivialized the report. Who gives an expletive? Paul said on Game Over with Max Kellerman and Rich Paul. That's the response of a man who isn't surprised. That's not outrage. That's exhaustion. Paul is one of the most politically savvy agents in American sports. He doesn't flap easily, and his nonchalance here carried a specific message. They already knew the relationship with Buss was sour. This wasn't news to them. This was just news to everybody else. Behind the scenes, though, things moved quickly. ESPN's Brian Windhorst reported that Buss, James, and Paul were making an effort to move past any negative feelings. This is actually having LeBron and Jeanie Buss and Rich Paul actually come together and sort of clear any air, any scar tissue that exists. Scar tissue. That phrase does a lot of work because scar tissue doesn't just form from nothing. It forms after wounds. And those wounds, the Westbrook fiasco, the Bronny draft situation, the years of Clutch influencing roster decisions, those were real. LeBron's own response said more than people realized. James said of his decision to join the Lakers, "My whole mindset was about restoring excellence. The things that I saw growing up with the Lakers. Obviously, I didn't get an opportunity to watch the Showtime era, but I know the history. Then the early 2000s with Shaq and Kobe, and then what Kobe did and those couple runs with him and Powell. He was explaining himself. In all his years in the league, LeBron James has rarely found it necessary to explain himself. And here he was, after a report dropped about the owner of his own team, privately griping about him, reverting to the original argument. The mission statement he had when he signed in 2018. The subtext was unmistakable. I came here to win. I won. What more do you want? But he also said something else that landed harder. James told reporters that he's unfazed by the report. Quite frankly, I don't really care about articles, James said. I'm 41 years old, and I watch golf every day. I don't care about an article. I don't care how somebody feels about me. If you know me personally and you know what I'm about, my teammates know what I'm about, and that's all that matters. He was performing indifference, and he did it well. But the mere fact that he addressed it multiple times, that he kept coming back to it when he didn't have to, told a different story. When someone truly doesn't care, they don't keep talking about it. LeBron kept talking about it because this one cut differently. This wasn't a random media critic or a talking head on ESPN calling him overrated. This was the woman who owned his team, who he'd given 8 years of his career to, reportedly describing him in private as a man with an ego problem, who didn't appreciate what he was given after he won them a championship, after he became the all-time leading scorer in that uniform, after he dragged that organization back into relevance, when they'd spent years wandering in mediocrity. The bus report cracked something open that had been sealed for years. And what spilled out was the tension that had always quietly existed between LeBron's model of player empowerment and the traditional hierarchy of franchise ownership. For the entirety of his career, LeBron has operated with a level of influence over team decision-making that no player before him had really attempted to formalize. He wasn't just a player, he was a power broker. He had views on roster construction. His agent represented multiple players on every team he played for, which gave Clutch Sports a level of institutional leverage that no sports agency had ever wielded quite like that before. According to the report, Buss privately expressed concerns about James's perceived ego and the influence of his agency, Clutch Sports, on team affairs. This sentiment reportedly began as early as James's 2018 signing, a move that was widely seen as a coup for the Lakers, but one that Buss felt didn't give the franchise enough credit for its recruitment efforts. So from the very beginning, from the moment he signed, she felt undermined. And for 8 years, that feeling never fully went away. It just got buried under championships and billion-dollar valuations, and the shared interest in winning. And now the new ownership under Mark Walter changes the calculation entirely. Jeannie Buss spearheaded the sale of the team to TWG Global CEO, Mark Walter, for $10 billion in June 2025. The organization LeBron joined in 2018, the one run by the Buss family, with Magic Johnson as the face of the front office, with all the complicated Hollywood royalty energy of the purple and gold. That organization doesn't exist anymore. ESPN's Dave McMenamin reported that James never asked for a contract extension, and that the Lakers did not offer one. Instead, the organization pivoted its long-term vision toward Luka Doncic as the new face of the franchise, effectively positioning the 40-year-old James to become an unrestricted free agent. That's the organizational version of a breakup text. Not a fight, not a dramatic falling out, just a quiet, deliberate decision to stop building around you and start building around someone else. James is too smart not to understand exactly what that means. And that understanding is what makes the trade rumors circling right now feel less like speculation and more like inevitability. The trade conversations that Rich Paul was having over the summer were not random. In a recent post on ex-NBA insider Brandon Scoop B. Robinson revealed that during the offseason, Paul had conversations with multiple teams about James's situation. Those discussions confirmed that the possibility of James leaving the Lakers was very real, even if no deal ultimately materialized. Multiple league sources tell me that Rich Paul's conversations with the Mavs, Clippers, Warriors, and Cavs this summer were very real. Robinson wrote on X, 4 teams, conversations that were described as very real. This wasn't a fishing expedition or a negotiating tactic, or Rich Paul making noise to get the Lakers to sweeten a deal. This was a man and his agent genuinely exploring the exit doors. And every one of those 4 destinations carries a specific emotional and strategic logic. That tells you something profound about where LeBron's head is right now. Because here's the thing, LeBron James doesn't make moves without thinking about legacy. Every decision he has ever made in his career has been filtered through the lens of how it would read in 20 years. The decision wasn't just a career move. It was a statement about player power in the modern NBA. The return to Cleveland wasn't just basketball. It was a son coming home to his people. The move to Los Angeles wasn't just chasing rings. It was building an empire in the entertainment capital of the world. Everything has meaning. Everything connects to the larger story he's writing about himself. So when you ask where LeBron goes next, you're not actually asking about basketball logistics. You're asking what the final page of the greatest basketball story ever written looks like. And that answer is more complicated and more emotionally raw than any of the trade packages or free agency numbers can capture. Let's talk about what's actually on the table. Because right now, in the summer of 2026, the NBA landscape around LeBron James is not just speculation. It's a fully structured set of conversations with real dollar amounts, real players being discussed, and real front offices making real decisions. And it starts with the team he's leaving. James made $52.6 million during the 2025-26 campaign, and he showed he can still be a productive player at 41 years old. The Lakers can offer him more money than any other team, but Shelburne indicated they could look to cut his salary, which may not be well received. Let that land. After a 23.7-assist playoff run, while carrying an injury-depleted team, the organization's opening move in negotiations is to lower his pay. That's not exactly the "we want you here" message. And the alternatives are genuinely compelling. The Cleveland Cavaliers, New York Knicks, and Golden State Warriors are all considered to be plausible destinations for James if he chooses to continue playing next season. 3 of the most historically significant franchises in basketball. 3 completely different stories, and each one represents a different version of what LeBron's final chapter could look like. Let's start with Cleveland, because nothing in this entire conversation is more emotionally loaded than the idea of a homecoming. It's another offseason where everyone is talking about whether there is one final chapter remaining in LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers storybook ending. The city he walked away from in 2010, the city he returned to in 2014, the city he carried to the most miraculous championship in NBA history in 2016. That city never stopped loving him, even when he left the second time, and he knows it. The mechanics of a Cleveland deal have gotten very specific very fast. ESPN's Brian Windhorst raised one idea on how the Cavaliers could land James in a sign-and-trade arrangement with the Lakers. The arrangement would need the Cavs to send their center Jarrett Allen to the Lakers. There is a thought process out there in Los Angeles, and I think if the Cavs were interested in this, the Lakers would sit up in attention right now, that they would sign and trade LeBron for Jarrett Allen, Windhorst said. And Windhorst went further. If the Cavs were willing to do that, they could have LeBron. Obviously, LeBron would have to want to sign with the Cavs, but if your pathway to paying LeBron the money is to trade Jarrett Allen for him, the Lakers would kill for Allen. Kill for him. They would do that deal in 17/10 of a second. 17/10 of a second. That's not a negotiating position. That's a desperate organization finding a way to solve its center problem. In exchange for letting go of its icon, the financial architecture of this deal has been mapped out in detail. Cleveland doesn't have the cap space to sign James outright if he hits free agency, but the proposed sign and trade would create the space by dumping Allen's $90 million deal. LeBron's fit with the Cavs alongside Donovan Mitchell and James Harden would be complex though. In one version of the deal, James would ink a 3-year contract worth $63 million that pays $20 million for 2026-27. James and the Cavaliers could have a behind-the-scenes agreement that James plays only a couple of seasons, similar to what the San Antonio Spurs did years ago with Tim Duncan at the end of his career. So this isn't just about basketball. It's about giving a legend a dignified, structured exit on his own terms. That's something the Lakers apparently are no longer in the business of providing. But the Cavaliers situation comes with its own complications. Several analysts have pushed back on the Cleveland idea. Cleveland is focused on developing their young core rather than chasing aging superstars. Why would the Cavs do that? Giving up young players and getting arguably worse in the short term to rent LeBron for a year or two? It's a fair question. The Cavaliers have become genuinely relevant again without LeBron. They reached their first Eastern Conference Finals berth since his time there, but they were sent packing quickly by the New York Knicks. So they have ambition. They just need to decide if LeBron is the answer to that ambition or a detour from it. James, Mitchell, and Harden are three players who succeed with the ball in their hands, and they prefer to play that way. Though that could cause some trouble, there's no denying the trio would be one of the most talented big threes in the NBA and catapult Cleveland into the biggest threat to the New York Knicks in the East. Then there's Golden State, and this one has a different kind of electricity to it. Pairing with Curry, the defining foil of the second half of James's career, would create a spectacle and bring even more buzz to James's final stage. Think about what that means. LeBron and Steph Curry, the two men who defined an entire era of basketball through their rivalry, who met in the finals 4 consecutive times, who turned every June into a national event, playing on the same team. It would be the most surreal final chapter in NBA history. Before the Lakers played the Warriors earlier in the season, Warriors coach Steve Kerr was asked how much personal attention he was paying toward whether James would make 2025-26 his final season. "I don't have an investment in it, other than I know how good he is for the NBA," Kerr said, "and so what's good for the NBA is good for every team. So whenever he retires, we're going to miss him. Other than that, I don't have anything personally invested, but the relationship that we have from the Olympics means that we'll always share that together." Read between the lines there. Kerr's talking about Olympics camaraderie. While being asked about a potential trade, he's not shutting the door. And the Warriors aren't bluffing. If the legal tampering period opens, the Warriors could seriously be in play for LeBron. Golden State can offer the full $15.1 million non-taxpayer mid-level. LeBron is also tight with Steph Curry, who could openly recruit the king. Now, a $15.1 million mid-level offer for a man who just made $52.6 million is a laughable number on paper. But the Warriors understand that for LeBron, this decision was never going to be about the money. He's a billionaire. He has more money than he can spend. This decision is about one thing and one thing only: a 5th championship. The Warriors also feature one of James's best friends in the league, Draymond Green, and another former finals opponent in Jimmy Butler III, who could miss the early part of next season while recovering from a torn ACL in his right knee. So the team isn't perfect, but the infrastructure, Curry's offensive system, Kerr's championship coaching pedigree, the Oracle Chase Center culture, is exactly what a player chasing one final ring dreams about. And then there's Miami, the origin story of the modern LeBron. NBA insider Barry Jackson ignited rumors about LeBron James's return to Miami. Following the Heat's blockbuster trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, Giannis in Miami, with Bam Adebayo and potentially LeBron, that's not a basketball team, that's a movie. Jackson's report stated the Heat could try to lure impending free agent LeBron James with its full mid-level exception, but a James return is considered a long shot, though nothing can be ruled out. Miami is where LeBron became the player who understood how to maximize his career through team construction. Pat Riley was his professor in that regard, and the idea of ending where the player empowerment era truly began, in South Beach, in the purple and gold Heat uniforms, with a Giannis LeBron Bam trio, carries its own specific romantic weight. Jackson acknowledged James's return is unlikely, but such a scenario would have the Heat buzzing. Having James alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bam Adebayo would be a dream come true. But the cap landscape paints a different reality. The reality is that LeBron is holding all of these options up to the light simultaneously. Not because he's indecisive, but because every single choice carries consequences that extend far beyond wins and losses. A return to Cleveland is a statement about home, about roots, about the debt a man owes to the place that made him. A move to Golden State is a statement about legacy repair, about standing next to his greatest rival and saying, "We're better together than we were against each other." A move to Miami is a closing of the circle. And staying in Los Angeles, which quietly still appears to be the most likely outcome, according to most insiders, is a choice to accept a lesser role on a team that's moved on to its next chapter. ESPN's Anthony Slater reported that the Warriors are indeed interested in James, but they're expecting him to re-sign with the Lakers in free agency. All the intel that Warriors decision-makers have gathered continues to point toward James' return to the Lakers, team sources said, and they are currently plotting their summer under that premise. But the Lakers aren't exactly making it easy for him to come back. After the humbling playoff exit, the entire spotlight shifted to LeBron's contract and whether his uncertain future could slow the purple and gold's plans for their younger core. The Lakers are building around Luka Doncic. They just extended Austin Reeves. They need a center. Not only do the Lakers have to set their minds on making Austin Reeves the Robin to Doncic's Batman, but Marcus Smart and DeAndre Ayton also hold player options for the second year of their 2-year deals. It would be in the team's best interest to get an answer from James, whatever he decides, sooner than later, because his $59.5 million cap hold represents a large chunk of their remaining flexibility. So the Lakers need him to decide, but they're also signaling through those leaked salary cut suggestions, through the failure to offer an extension, through the organizational shift toward Doncic, that they're okay either way. And that dynamic, more than anything else, is why LeBron is actually sitting with this longer than anyone expected. Because LeBron James has never been the guy people were okay either way about. He has always been the guy. The reason the arena is full, the reason the broadcast contract goes up, the reason the franchise is worth what it is. We now fret about finding a new face of the league because the old one refuses to relinquish his grip. And James, perhaps more than any modern star, has always understood there's more to that fictitious title than just playing basketball at a high level. The Lakers are beginning to experience a future without him, and they're discovering that the future is fine, maybe even exciting. But it's different, and LeBron knows that feeling well, because it's the same feeling he had when he looked around that Lakers locker room and realized the franchise had already moved on. There's a moment in the middle of all of this that nobody has talked about enough. It was March of 2026. The Lakers had just beaten the Sacramento Kings, and LeBron sat down with California Post senior sports reporter Melissa Rowland for a long conversation. Not about the game, not about the trade rumors, not about the Genie Bus report, about the end, about what happens when basketball stops, about legacy. And what came out of that conversation landed like a quiet earthquake. LeBron James knows the end of his historic NBA career is coming at some point, but he says when the day finally arrives, it will not be about sadness. It will be about celebration. That sounds like the kind of polished athlete speak you'd expect from a man who's been giving media interviews since he was 17 years old. But what followed was different. He described the end of his career like a funeral. I kind of look at it like when you lose a loved one and you have a funeral. James told the California Post, think about the emotional register of that metaphor. This isn't a man who's at peace with the ending. A man at peace with the ending doesn't compare it to loss. He compares it to loss because that's what it feels like. The death of the only identity he's ever truly known. From the time he was 9 years old playing AAU basketball in Akron. Basketball wasn't something LeBron did. It was who he was. And now he's watching that identity approach its natural conclusion. And the grief is real, even if he wraps it in the language of celebration. And then came the question that cut through everything. When asked what he wanted the final scene of his career to look like, if he could write the ending himself, he had complete clarity. Me smiling, he said. 2 words. After 41 years of living, after 23 seasons of basketball, after $1 billion in earnings and 4 championships and 17 All-Star appearances, and more individual records than anyone can list without checking Wikipedia. What he wants is to be smiling. That's it. Just smiling. And that tells you everything about where he's at emotionally right now. Because LeBron James has not been smiling about his basketball situation. For LeBron, the motivation has shifted from building a legacy to finding the most meaningful way to spend his final years on the hardwood. That's a profound shift. For the first 22 years of his career, every move was legacy construction. Every decision was another brick in the monument he was building to himself. But now it's about meaning, about joy, about what it feels like in the locker room, what it feels like in the last minutes of a tight game, what it feels like when the buzzer sounds. And you know you gave everything you had. He also addressed one of his most iconic records, his consecutive games scoring at least 10 points. While historic, James admitted he's not obsessed with it, even expressing fatigue over the constant attention. For him, winning has always mattered more than statistics. The man who broke every scoring record in NBA history is expressing fatigue over record attention. That's not an athlete who's motivated by personal milestones. That's an athlete who, at the end, is still only chasing one thing. The GOAT conversation is the other thread running through everything he said. The GOAT debate inevitably surfaced in these conversations, frequently compared to Michael Jordan. LeBron emphasized their differences. Jordan was a scorer. LeBron is a playmaker. He views the debate as more of a barbershop conversation than a meaningful evaluation. There's a particular kind of exhaustion in that framing. He spent his entire career being measured against a man he never played against, in a comparison that can never be fully resolved, and he's done fighting it. He's not claiming the title outright. He's not conceding it either. He's just tired of the question. But the Jordan comparison isn't going away, and he knows it. At 41, the four-time MVP averaged 20.9 points, 7.2 assists, and 6.1 rebounds in 60 regular season games. Jordan retired at 40, his second retirement anyway, putting up 20 points a night for the Washington Wizards. LeBron is doing more than that, at the same age on a better team, in a faster, more athletic era. The numbers don't lie, but the rings scorecard remains 6-4 in Jordan's favor. And as long as that's true, the debate lives, which brings us back to the fifth ring. Always back to the fifth ring. As he nears the end of his legendary career, James is hoping to have the chance to add a fifth NBA title to his mantle. That's not a casual preference. That's the burning center of every decision he's making right now. Because LeBron understands better than anyone, because he's thought about this more than anyone, that in 30 years, when the history of his career gets written, the conversation will inevitably come back to championships. And right now he's at 4. Jordan has 6, and that number lives in LeBron's head like a quiet alarm clock that never quite stops ringing. James has been the epitome of greatness for 2 decades, and hasn't had any missteps despite being under the most intense of microscopes. But instead of being celebrated, James is often poked. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. His former teammate Dwayne Wade told the California Post, "And when you're that great, people get bored, and they get tired of talking about how great you are. And they gotta start picking at the things that maybe aren't as great as other things." Wade gets it because he lived it with him. He watched from the inside during those Miami years, when they were the 2 most scrutinized athletes on the planet, and what he's describing isn't just media criticism. It's a specific kind of loneliness that comes with being so dominant for so long, that people need to find ways to cut you down just to feel like they're engaging with you as a human being. And that loneliness has taken a particular shape this season. The conversation around LeBron's future escalated further following the ESPN report from Baxter Holmes, which detailed alleged tension between James and Lakers governor Jeannie Buss. The report claimed Buss had grown frustrated, citing a perceived lack of appreciation and accountability from the Lakers superstar, as well as what was described as an outsized ego. Here's a man who came to Los Angeles to restore a franchise, who dragged them to a championship in an NBA bubble, in one of the strangest seasons in league history during a global pandemic while the world was on fire, who became the all-time leading scorer in that uniform, who brought global relevance back to the purple and gold when it had been wandering for years. And the owner of that franchise was privately describing his ego as outsized. The cognitive dissonance of that moment, being simultaneously the best thing to ever happen to an organization, and the man that organization's ownership privately resents, is the kind of thing that leaves marks. It also reframes the entire legacy conversation in a way that cuts to the bone. Because LeBron's legacy has never been just about basketball. From the beginning, he was deliberate about building something larger. The LeBron James Family Foundation and the I Promise School in Akron, the production company, Spring Hill Entertainment, the Fenway Sports Group investment, the billions in brand deals. James has always understood there's more to the title of face of the league than just playing basketball at a high level. He understood it before anyone else did. He built an empire around that understanding. And yet here he is at the end of the basketball chapter of that empire, being told by his own team's ownership that his ego was a problem, being positioned as an expiring contract rather than a franchise cornerstone, being, for the first time in his career, treated as someone whose next move wasn't guaranteed, whose future wasn't already planned, whose value to the organization was something that needed to be reassessed rather than assumed. And his response to all of that is the emotional core of this whole story. He kept playing, he kept producing, he averaged 23 points and 7 assists during the playoff run, while his 2 best teammates sat out with injuries. He missed a potential game winner with 20 seconds left in Game 4, and then sat down with reporters and admitted quietly that he didn't know what came next. "I don't know what the future holds for me, obviously, as it stands right now tonight," he told reporters. "I've got a lot of time now. I think I said it last year after we lost to Minnesota. I'll go back and recalibrate with my family and talk with them and spend some time with them. And then obviously when the time comes, you guys will know what I decide. That's vulnerability. Real unguarded vulnerability from a man who has spent 23 years in the business of projecting invincibility. The recalibration with family, the lot of time now, the admission that he doesn't know. These aren't PR talking points. These are the words of a man who is genuinely uncertain about something for the first time in a very long career. And Dwayne Wade articulated what so many people feel watching this play out. Wade finds it laughable that there's so much criticism around James. He's been dragged through the mud his entire career. When he passes the ball, people say he should have shot, and vice versa. James has been the epitome of greatness for 2 decades and hasn't had any missteps despite being under the most intense of microscopes. But instead of being celebrated, James is often poked. That framing matters because it captures the particular injustice of LeBron's situation. He has done everything right, statistically, professionally, by every metric we use to measure greatness in basketball. He belongs in a conversation with the absolute best who have ever played the game. And yet the criticism never stopped. The people who needed him to fail for their own Jordan arguments never ran out of ammunition. And now, as he faces the most emotionally raw moment of his entire career, the question of what the last chapter looks like, all of that external noise is swirling louder than ever. He said he wanted to be smiling when it ends. That's a man setting a standard for himself that goes beyond wins and losses. You can smile after a championship, but you can also smile after a dignified final season on a team that respected you, in a city that loved you, playing alongside people who made the game feel like joy again rather than obligation. And right now, LeBron is trying to figure out which of those scenarios is actually available to him. Because the 5th ring option and the smiling option don't necessarily lead to the same place. Let's talk about what actually happens next. Because we're at a point in this story where the abstract questions about legacy and identity have collided with real concrete decisions that need to be made in the next few weeks. Free agency is open, teams are talking, the Lakers are waiting, and LeBron James, the most scrutinized athlete in American sports history, is sitting somewhere, probably watching golf, trying to figure out the ending of his own story. With his generational talent and access to the best training resources basketball can offer, James could certainly last a few more seasons. The question is, will he? James is about to enter unrestricted free agency, which means that any team could step up and make him an offer. Any team. The whole league is on the table, and every option carries its own specific weight. The most likely outcome, per the people closest to it, is still Los Angeles. Given that all signs right now point to James returning to the Lakers, it's probably safest to assume he will remain in Los Angeles for at least one more season. But safest to assume and definitely happening are very different things in LeBron's world. The conversations between LeBron's representative and the Lakers were described as, "We're keeping in touch." To put it simply, no one should assume that James will return to Los Angeles for his 24th NBA season. The interpretation is something like, LeBron is still assessing his options, whether that is retirement or whether that is other teams. And if there are other teams that he's looking at, what does that money look like? 3 options on the table simultaneously: continue in LA, move to a new franchise, or walk away entirely. Each one tells a completely different story. Let's think about what retirement would actually mean. Looking ahead, LeBron doesn't see himself following peers into broadcasting. That's interesting. The natural next step for the retired athlete turned media personality, the Charles Barkley path, the Shaquille O'Neal path, doesn't appeal to him. And honestly, it makes sense. LeBron's post-basketball empire is already running. Spring Hill Entertainment is producing content. His investment portfolio is deep. The business of being LeBron James doesn't require him to sit on a TV panel and debate whether Bronny James should start. But retirement at 41, after a season where he was still one of the 15 best players in the NBA, when he can still chase a 5th ring, that's a different kind of decision. He's Captain Ahab, lording the ship and raging against the very notion of mortality. But the whale is here, and it's a team full of players who were each younger than his 11-year-old daughter, Zuri. When LeBron James made his debut in the league 22 years ago, the youth gap on the Oklahoma City Thunder, the team that swept him out, is the most visceral reminder of what he's actually up against. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was 8 years old when LeBron won his first ring, and yet LeBron James refuses to be the cautionary tale. The biggest reason some people remain confident he should keep playing. is that James is still producing at a level few players can match. At 41, the four-time MVP averaged 20.9 points, 7.2 assists, and 6.1 rebounds in 60 regular season games. 60 games, not 82. The load management is real. The sciatica that cost him the first 14 games of the season is a reminder that the body has its own timeline. But in the games he plays, in the minutes he's on the floor, the quality is still elite. To watch his last stand was to appreciate the 2 decades that led to that moment. Take, for instance, when the 41-year-old James powers through a defender in the post, bullying him until he gets to the exact spot he wants, before draining a fadeaway. And suddenly it's the 2015 finals again. We see him in a Cavs jersey trying to bring a championship to Cleveland. His 2 best sidekicks were injured and out, and James found a way. The Cleveland option keeps coming back because it's the only one with genuine narrative completion. LeBron has always been a master of his own narrative, and there is no better way to end a career than where it started. Rumors of a return to the Cleveland Cavaliers have never truly died down, and as the 2026 season winds down, the one last dance in Ohio feels more plausible than ever. Think about the structure of it. Born in Akron, drafted by the Cavaliers, left for Miami, won 2 rings, came back to Cleveland, won the title that erased 52 years of championship drought, left for Los Angeles, won another ring, and now, if the story completes itself the way stories sometimes do, a final return to Ohio for one last run. How can James finish his career where it began in Cleveland? Though complicated, a sign and trade from the Lakers to Cleveland is absolutely workable. But workable doesn't mean he wants to. That would require James to sign off on wanting to play for the Cavs again. And to this point, that doesn't really seem to be a strong consideration for the future Hall of Famer. LeBron is not a sentimental man when it comes to basketball decisions. Every choice has been strategic. Akron to Cleveland was geography. Cleveland to Miami was about winning. Miami to Cleveland was about legacy and redemption. Cleveland to Los Angeles was about empire building. The Warriors option remains the most cinematic and the most complicated. Per reporting, it does not appear like LeBron is currently anywhere close to re-signing with the Lakers. If the legal tampering period opens, the Warriors could seriously be in play. Golden State can offer the full $15.1 million non-taxpayer mid-level. That's a fraction of what he made last year. But the Warriors' pitch isn't financial. As one report put it, all the intel that Warriors decision-makers have gathered continues to point toward James's return to the Lakers. The Warriors' pitch, if the door cracks open, would be simple. They can clear room for the full $15.1 million non-taxpayer mid-level. A team-friendly, low-risk bargain with on-court and off-court financial upside. The on-court upside is obvious. LeBron and Steph together is a championship roster. The off-court upside is that San Francisco and Golden State represent a market that works perfectly for LeBron's business interests. His family's California life, his production company, his profile. It's not a departure from the life he's built. It's a pivot within the same world. And then there's the question his entire family has a stake in. Bronny's development has been a topic of intense debate, with some scouts suggesting he might need a fresh start in a different environment to truly grow out of his father's shadow. By leaving the Lakers, LeBron effectively liberates Bronny from the constant media circus that follows their partnership, allowing the young guard to carve out his own identity. This is the part of the conversation that never gets the attention it deserves. LeBron's decision isn't just about LeBron. He spent the last 2 seasons playing alongside his son on the same NBA roster, a first in league history, a moment he described as one of the greatest of his life. But Bronny's development requires Bronny to stop being defined as LeBron's son first and a basketball player second. And that only happens when they're not in the same building. So every direction LeBron turns in this decision carries a different kind of weight. Stay in Los Angeles for a reduced salary on a team that's pivoting away from him, and play a supporting role for Doncic and Reeves. Head to Cleveland for one final homecoming, knowing the roster has real championship potential, but also knowing the sacrifices that come with that deal. Chase the ring in Golden State for a fraction of his market value, alongside his longtime rival turned friend, or walk away entirely and let the career end on his own terms, without having to answer to anyone. His representative has not even fully committed to LeBron returning next year in conversations with the Lakers. The conversations were described to him as, "We're keeping in touch." 3 words, keeping in touch. That's not a warm embrace. That's a man keeping every option open because he hasn't yet figured out which answer lets him be smiling when the last buzzer sounds. What makes this moment so raw is that LeBron has always known exactly what he wanted. From the time he was a teenager, he operated with a level of clarity and intentionality that separated him from every other player of his generation. He didn't just have talent, he had a plan. And the plan was always to build an unassailable legacy. On the court, off the court, in basketball history, in American cultural history. And now he's at the moment where the final piece of that plan has to be written. And for the first time, he doesn't know what it says. A knock that will become part of the idea of legacy. A season that will be called a failure. Still, to watch this last stand is to appreciate the 2 decades that led to this moment. That's the weight of what's happening right now. Not just another offseason. Not just another trade rumor, but the final defining act of the greatest basketball career in the history of the sport. And the man at the center of it, the man with the 4 rings and the all-time scoring record, and the billions of dollars and the production company and the family empire, is sitting somewhere, trying to figure out if he's smiling yet. Because that's what he said he wanted. Not another ring, not another record, not another headline, not another debate victory in the Jordan conversation. Just the smile. Just the feeling of the ending being right, of the last chapter closing cleanly, with satisfaction, with the people he loves around him, with the knowledge that he gave every single thing he had to this sport, and to this life, and that the sport gave it back to him in full. When the day finally arrives, it will not be about sadness. It will be about celebration. He said that. He believed it. But right now, in the middle of the trade talks and the salary negotiations and the owner reports, and the legacy discussions, and the retirement speculation. Right now, it doesn't feel like celebration. It feels like grief. The grief of something ending that can never be replaced. The grief of an identity preparing to transform into something new. And maybe that's exactly what the tears are for. Not for the career that's ending, for the career that happened. For every improbable thing this kid from Akron, Ohio, the kid whose mother was 16, whose address changed dozens of times, who had nothing but a basketball and a dream, managed to turn into something permanent, something that changed the sport forever, something that will be written about long after every argument about rings and Jordan comparisons has faded. This isn't a guy failing. This is Captain Ahab, lording the ship and raging against the very notion of mortality. And that's the truest thing anyone has said about LeBron James in years. He's not going gently into any good night. He's still out there, still fighting, still producing at an age when other players are 3 years into retirement. But the whale is close, the end is near, and the only question left is whether he gets to choose how it happens. After missing a potential game winner with 20 seconds left on Monday night, James faced reporters and the obvious questions about his future. His answer, "It's too early to tell. I don't know what the future holds for me, obviously, as it stands right now tonight." LeBron James, the man who always had a plan, standing at the podium and saying he doesn't know. That's the moment. That's what broke down. Not tears on a stage, but something quieter and heavier. The public acknowledgement that even the greatest of all time can't script the final scene. He wanted to be smiling. He's still working on it.